He rescued an alien orphan. Now every warrior race in the galaxy wants him dead. The proximity alarm screamed as Finn Aldrich's cutting torch breached the inner hull. He killed the torch and went still, listening to recycled air hiss through his helmet while debris from the shattered sanctuary station drifted past his viewport. His scanner chirped, faint but steady, a life sign. Finn pulled himself through the breach, mag boots engaging as he entered the station's gravity well. Emergency lighting flickered in shades of red. Scorch marks blackened the walls. This hadn't been an accident. Someone had deliberately torn this place apart. He passed body after body, station personnel still strapped into their posts, faces frozen behind cracked helmet visors. He'd seen combat deaths before. These people hadn't been soldiers. This had been murder. The signal led him to a sealed bulkhead in what looked like a residential section. Children's toys drifted in zero gravity. Finn cycled his cutting torch back to life. The metal peeled away in glowing strips. He switched on his helmet lamp and peered through. 2 golden eyes stared back from the shadows. Finn jerked backward, hand dropping to his plasma pistol. The eyes didn't move, just watched him with predatory intensity. He forced his breathing steady and swept the light across the compartment. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, pressed into the far corner behind an overturned storage locker. Russet fur covered her arms and legs. Large, pointed ears lay flat against her skull. Fox-like features, delicate and sharp. But something else, too, patches of scaled skin along her shoulders, and her hands ended in retractable claws that dug into metal hard enough to leave gouges. Blood matted the fur along her left side. Her breathing came in quick, shallow gasps, but those eyes never left his face. "Easy," Finn said, raising both hands. "I'm not here to hurt you." The child's ears twitched, then her lips pulled back from sharp teeth. Finn's scanner shrieked. "New contacts, incoming fast, 3 ships, military-grade signatures." He glanced at his wrist display and cursed. 15 minutes. He looked back at the child. Fear had replaced aggression in her expression. She'd heard his scanner. She knew what it meant. "We need to move," Finn said, "right now." The child didn't budge. Her claws scraped against metal. Finn pulled off his helmet. The station's air was stale but breathable. He met the child's gaze directly, letting her see his face. Human, unmodified, no threat displays. "My name is Finn," he said. "I have a ship." The child's nostrils flared, scenting him. Some species relied on pheromones as much as words. He held still and let her process whatever his sweat and fear were broadcasting. After a moment that felt like an hour, she moved. Testing her injured side, then faster as adrenaline hit, she scrambled across the compartment and grabbed his arm, claws pricking through his suit's fabric. Up close, he could see she was shaking. "Stay with me," he said. They moved fast through the corridors, Finn half carrying the child when her injury slowed her down. His ship was docked at an auxiliary port, the Nomad, a battered transport that had seen better decades. He sealed them inside and hit the emergency disconnect. The Nomad shuddered as docking clamps released. Finn dropped into the pilot's seat and brought engines online while the child climbed into the co-pilot's chair. "Buckle in," Finn said, pointing at the harness. She stared blankly. He reached across and helped her, trying not to notice how she flinched. 3 military ships appeared on his scanner. Their sensor sweeps washed over the Nomad, and incoming hails lit up his console. He ignored them, plotting a course through the debris field. "Unknown vessel, this is the Turok warship Severed Claw. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." A second voice cut through, different language, but his translator handled it smoothly. "Unmarked transport. You are ordered to heave to for inspection by the Vulrine clan ship Swift Retribution. Failure to comply will result in immediate destruction." The child went rigid, ears flat, eyes wide. When the second voice had spoken, she'd made a sound in the back of her throat, part whimper, part growl. "Yeah," Finn muttered. "I'm getting that feeling too." He pushed the throttle forward and dove into the debris field. The Nomad wasn't built for combat or speed. But Finn knew debris fields. 3 years of salvage work had taught him how to read wreckage flow, how to slip through gaps scanners said were too small, how to use sensor shadows to disappear. The military ships were faster, better armed, but they flew careful by the book, unwilling to risk their hulls. Finn had no such concerns. He threaded the Nomad through tumbling hull fragments, close enough that metal scraped metal. Warning alarms howled. The child gripped her armrests with white-knuckled intensity. Behind them, one pursuit ship broke off as debris spun through their flight path. "Come on, baby," Finn whispered, "just a little further." The debris field's edge rushed toward them. Beyond it, empty space and freedom to jump to FTL. Finn's finger hovered over the jump drive. 5 seconds. 4. 3. Something exploded to port. The Nomad lurched sideways and Finn's console flashed a warning. External attachment detected. Quantum signature lock established. He pulled up the camera feed. A small device was magnetically clamped to his engine housing, pulsing with energy his sensors couldn't analyze. A tracking beacon. Quantum entangled. The kind that couldn't be jammed or blocked, that would broadcast his position no matter where he ran. "Unknown vessel, you have been marked," the Tarok voice said with satisfaction. "There is nowhere you can hide. Surrender the abomination and you will be permitted to leave with your life." The Volrene ship chimed in. "The human is irrelevant. Deliver the Bridgeborn and we will forget this incident." Finn looked at the child. She was staring at him with those too intelligent golden eyes. She knew what they wanted. "Bridgeborn," Finn repeated. He didn't know the term, but the hatred in both voices had been unmistakable. The child reached out and wrapped her hand around his wrist. Her claws pricked his skin, not threatening, just holding on. Trusting him. Finn activated the jump drive. "Unknown vessel, you are making a grave mistake." The Nomad leaped into FTL and the voices cut off. Stars stretched into lines. Finn set a random course that would keep them jumping for hours. The child's grip relaxed. She slumped in her seat, exhaustion catching up. Finn activated the medical scanner. Cracked ribs, severe contusions, minor radiation exposure, dehydration, nothing immediately fatal, but she needed treatment. He pulled up his ship's database. Sanctuary Station returned hundreds of results. He filtered by recent destruction and felt his stomach drop. 17 stations had gone dark in the last month, all run by the same neutral organization, all housing refugees. All completely destroyed with no survivors. Except there was a survivor now. Finn studied the child's sleeping face. 2 warrior species both wanted her dead. She had features of both, vulpine characteristics, and something else, scales, retractable claws. He pulled up historical records, the Volrene Tarok War. Nearly a century of bloodshed before a treaty ended the fighting. Part of that treaty included strict prohibitions on interbreeding. Cultural contamination, both sides had called it. The child stirred in her sleep. Living proof that someone had broken the treaty. Living proof both species would kill to keep hidden. His console chimed. The quantum beacon was still active. His computer had analyzed the signal, and what he saw made his blood freeze. The beacon wasn't just transmitting to those 3 ships. It was transmitting to every Volrene clan ship and every Tarok warband in this sector. Hundreds of vessels, thousands of warriors, all receiving constant updates on his position, all converging on his trajectory. Finn had been marked by 2 entire civilizations. He looked down at the child. She was still sleeping, ears twitching with dreams, small and vulnerable and utterly dependent on him. The jump drive cycled down. They dropped back into normal space. Finn's scanner immediately lit up with new contacts. 20 ships this time, forming a blockade across his next jump point. More were arriving every second. Finn started plotting their next desperate escape. Finn had outrun the first blockade by jumping blind into an unmapped asteroid belt. It had bought them less than an hour before the quantum beacon betrayed their position again. Now the Nomad limped through the outer rim of the Kessa system. The child, Kessa, he'd started calling her, sat curled in the navigator's chair, watching him with those unsettling golden eyes. She hadn't spoken. Finn wasn't sure she could. But she was smart. When he'd tried to remove the tracking beacon, she'd grabbed his wrist and shaken her head. Then she'd pulled up the ship's systems display and drew on the screen with one claw-tipped finger, showing him the quantum entanglement field. Touch it wrong, and the ship would detonate. So the beacon stayed, and they kept running. Finn brought the nomad into a decaying orbital station. He needed supplies and time to think. The station's automated systems accepted his docking request. Finn sealed his helmet and checked Kessa's borrowed emergency suit. Too large, but it would keep her alive. She touched his arm as they prepared to disembark, made a gesture, fingers to her nose, then spreading outward, scenting, warning. "You smell something?" Finn asked. Kessa's ears flattened. She pointed toward the docking port, then made a throat-cutting gesture. Finn checked his scanner, nothing, but Kessa's body language screamed danger, fur bristled, claws extended, muscles coiled. He pulled his plasma pistol and chambered around. The attack came from above. 3 figures dropped from a maintenance shaft. Turok warriors, 7 feet of scaled muscle, armed with plasma rifles already tracking toward him. Finn grabbed Kessa and dove sideways as energy bolts seared the air. Metal walls superheated, glowing red. Finn rolled to his feet and returned fire, forcing the warriors to cover. "Stay down," he hissed. Kessa nodded once, then scrambled up the wall, claws finding purchase, and disappeared into a ventilation duct. The Turok advanced with professional precision. Finn wasn't a soldier anymore. Hadn't been for 5 years. His hands shook as he blind-fired around the corner. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red, but that moment of darkness had been enough. Finn heard a scream, wet and cut short, followed by something heavy hitting the deck. 2 Turok warriors were down. One wasn't moving. The other crawled away, trailing blood from deep claw marks across his back. Kessa dropped behind the 3rd warrior. She was so small compared to him, barely reaching his waist, but she moved like liquid violence, claws extended, going for the backs of his knees. The warrior roared and spun. Finn put 3 plasma bolts through his chest. Silence fell except for cooling plasma and ragged breathing. Finn stared at Kessa. She was covered in blood, none of it hers, and her small chest heaved. She looked up at him with those golden eyes. No remorse, just cold calculation. Finn's hands shook as he checked the fallen warriors. No identification, just weapons and an acrid smell. Combat stimulants. These were hunters. Kessa tugged on his sleeve, holding a data chip she'd pulled from one of the bodies. She pressed it into his palm, then pointed back toward the ship. They made it to the Nomad without further contact. Finn sealed the airlock and ran a full scan before allowing himself to breathe. Kessa cleaned herself in the tiny head, while Finn plugged the data chip into his console. The chip contained a hit list, 50 names: humanitarian workers, refugee coordinators, 47 crossed off, deceased, confirmed kills. Amanda Criss was the first name remaining. Finn ran the name. Dr. Amanda Criss, former diplomatic envoy, current director of the Silent Harbor Network, the organization that had run the sanctuary stations. If anyone knew what was happening, it would be her. Last known location, a facility on Vestra 7, a moon in neutral territory. The file was 3 weeks old. She could be dead already. Or she could have answers. Kessa emerged wearing one of his old shirts that hung past her knees. She looked small, young, vulnerable. Then she met his eyes, and he remembered the warrior screaming. "We need help," Finn said, "someone who might be able to keep you safe." Kessa tilted her head. Finn pulled up star charts and plotted a course to Vestra 7. 6 jumps. The quantum beacon would broadcast their trajectory. But staying here meant dying. He reached for the jump activation. Kessa's hand closed over his. She was looking at the course. Her ears flattened, and a low rumble came from her throat. "I know it's dangerous," Finn said, "but we're out of options." Kessa shook her head. She pulled up a different navigation screen and began crossing out locations. One by one, she eliminated every sanctuary facility, every safe house, every refuge. Gone all of them. When she finished, only 2 locations remained. Vestra 7 was one. The other was deep in uncharted space. Kessa tapped Vestra 7, then held up 3 fingers. Then she made that throat-cutting gesture. "Amanda Criss is going to be dead in 3 days," Finn translated. Kessa nodded. The child was maybe 8 years old, couldn't speak standard, had been through unimaginable trauma. But she was giving him intelligence that felt disturbingly accurate. "Who were your parents?" Finn asked quietly. Kessa turned to the console and pulled up files, historical records, treaty documents. She displayed an image on the main screen. Two figures stood together in a diplomatic chamber. One was Vulrine, female with rust-colored fur and golden eyes like Kessa's. The other was Tarok, male, scaled and powerful. They were holding hands. The date stamp was 18 months ago. The caption identified them as Ambassador Rena of the Vulrine clans and Diplomat Surith of the Tarok Concordat. Both listed as executed for treaty violations 6 months later. "These are your parents," Finn said. Kessa nodded. Then she pulled up a news report. 2 high-ranking diplomats had been discovered violating the treaty. They'd been advocating for peace, for normalized relations. Their execution had been swift, public, brutal. No mention of a child. "They hid you," Finn said, "and when they were killed, someone got you to the sanctuary station." Kessa touched the screen, fingers gentle on her parents' faces. Her ears drooped. For the first time she looked like what she was, a little girl who'd lost everything. Finn reached out slowly. When she didn't pull away, he rested his hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said. They stayed like that for a moment. Then Kessa straightened, wiping her eyes. She pulled up the navigation screen and pointed firmly at Vestra 7. "You're right," Finn said. "If Amanda Chris is still alive, she's our best shot." He initialized the jump drive. Kessa buckled in without being asked. Finn's fingers hovered over the activation. Every instinct screamed trap. But staying meant dying slow. He triggered the jump. The Nomad leaped into FTL. Finn counted seconds, waiting for alarms. 1, 2, 5, 10. Nothing. They emerged in the outer Vestra system. Finn's scanner found it mercifully empty. No blockades, just usual traffic. Too easy. Finn plotted approach to Vestra 7. The moon hung ahead, gray and unremarkable except for facilities on its surface. The Silent Harbor headquarters occupied a crater on the northern hemisphere. His comm chimed, audio-only civilian band. "Unidentified vessel, this is Vestra 7 traffic control. Please transmit your identification and purpose." Finn keyed the mic. "This is the transport Nomad. I'm carrying a refugee who needs sanctuary, requesting permission to land." Silence, long enough that Finn started plotting emergency evasion. Then the comm crackled. "Nomad, you are cleared for landing at Pad 7. Welcome to Vestra 7. A pause. Dr. Chris has been expecting you." The connection cut off. Finn stared at the console, cold spreading through his chest. Expecting him? He'd made the decision less than an hour ago. Unless the quantum beacon didn't just track, unless it also transmitted audio, unless every word he'd spoken had been broadcast to whoever was listening. Finn looked at Kessa. She was watching him with those knowing eyes. Confirmation there. She'd known from the moment he'd found her. "Why?" Finn asked. "Why lead us here?" Kessa pointed at the view screen, at Vestra 7 growing larger. Then she made that gesture again, fingers spreading outward from her nose. Scenting, hunting. But this time she wasn't warning about danger ahead. She was telling him about danger behind, about ships that would converge on this location, following the beacon's signal. Kessa wasn't the bait. He was. The child smiled for the first time since he'd found her. It wasn't a happy expression. And somewhere on Vestra 7, Amanda Chris was waiting to spring it. The landing pad was empty, except for maintenance drones and the kind of silence that made Finn's trigger finger itch. He kept the Nomad's engines hot while he scanned the facility through the viewport. Clean. Too clean. The kind of operational precision that required either military discipline or paranoia honed by experience. Kessa pressed her nose against the viewport, breath fogging the glass. Her ears swiveled independently, tracking sounds Finn couldn't hear. When she looked back at him, her expression was unreadable. "Stay behind me," Finn said, "and if I say run, you run, understand?" Kessa's eyes narrowed. Then she made a gesture that was unmistakably dismissive, a flick of her wrist that said she'd been surviving just fine without his instructions. Finn might have laughed if they weren't walking into what was probably an ambush. The facility's airlock cycled with mechanical efficiency. Beyond it, a corridor stretched into sterile white light. Finn's boots echoed on polished floors as they moved deeper. Every surface gleamed. Every corner was clear. It felt less like a sanctuary and more like a laboratory. A woman waited for them at the corridor's end. She was human, early 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a severe bun and eyes that measured Finn in the space of a heartbeat. She wore practical clothes, cargo pants, reinforced jacket, boots made for running, combat-ready disguised as civilian casual. "Mr. Aldrich," she said. Her voice carried authority without raising volume. "I'm Dr. Amanda Criss. Thank you for bringing Kessa home." Home, the word hung in the air like a threat. "You were expecting us," Finn said. His hand stayed near his pistol. "I've been expecting someone like you since the sanctuary station started falling." Amanda's gaze dropped to Kessa. Something in her expression softened. "Hello, little one. Your mother would be proud of you." Kessa went rigid. Then she launched herself forward, crossing the space between them in 3 bounds. Amanda knelt and caught her, holding the child while Kessa's claws dug into her jacket. No words passed between them, but Finn watched Amanda's lips move in what looked like Volrene. Kessa responded with sounds that weren't quite language, but carried meaning. Finn felt like an intruder watching something private. He cleared his throat. "How did you know we were coming?" he asked. Amanda looked up, still holding Kessa. "Because you're not the first person who's tried to save a bridge-born child. You're just the first who's made it this far." She stood, keeping one hand on Kessa's shoulder. "Follow me. We don't have much time, and you deserve to understand what you've stepped into." The conference room she led them to had no windows, just screens showing surveillance feeds from across the facility and beyond. Ships in orbit, approach vectors, energy signatures. Finn counted at least 30 vessels converging on Vestra 7, military configurations, hunter-killer formations. "They're not here for Kessa," Amanda said, reading his expression. "Not directly. They're here for the proof." "Proof of what?" Finn asked. Amanda activated a holographic display. Documents materialized in the air between them, communications logs, financial transfers, surveillance footage. Finn's head spun trying to process it all. "The treaty that ended the Volrene-Turok War wasn't peace," Amanda said. "It was a business arrangement. Both sides maintain massive military complexes justified by the threat of renewed conflict. Defense contractors, arms manufacturers, entire economies built on preparation for a war that will never come because it's more profitable this way." She pulled up an image, a council chamber with representatives from both species. When Kessa's parents started pushing for true peace, for normalized relations and demilitarization, they threatened trillions in annual revenue. So they were eliminated, publicly, for treaty violations. In reality, for threatening the most lucrative Cold War in galactic history. Finn thought about the hit list, 50 names, 47 crossed off. "The sanctuary stations," he said slowly. "They weren't destroyed because they housed bridge-born children. They were destroyed because they had evidence." "Evidence that the treaty violations weren't violations at all," Amanda confirmed. "That the prohibitions on interbreeding were added to the treaty after it was signed. That dozens of bridge-born children existed before the ban. That Kessa's parents weren't criminals, they were whistleblowers." Kessa had moved to one of the screens watching the ships converge. Her small hand pressed against the display, claws leaving faint scratches. "So you've been collecting this evidence," Finn said, "and now they're coming to destroy it, to destroy you." "They're coming to destroy the broadcast equipment," Amanda corrected. She gestured to another screen showing massive transmitters built into the facility's infrastructure. "In approximately 2 hours, every neutral system in this sector will receive an emergency transmission. Evidence, testimony, images of bridge-born children who exist in defiance of a fraudulent treaty. The truth." Finn's blood went cold. "And you needed someone to carry Kessa here. Someone who'd be tracked every step of the way. Someone who'd lead every hunter and warship straight to your location right before you made the broadcast." "I needed witnesses," Amanda said quietly. "I needed the galaxy to see both sides attacking a humanitarian facility, slaughtering refugees to keep their profitable lie intact. I needed undeniable proof that this isn't about cultural purity or treaty compliance. It's about money and power." She met his eyes, and Finn saw no apology there, just cold calculation. "You used us," he said. "You used Kessa as bait." "I used the beacon they put on your ship," Amanda corrected. Kessa is here because this is the safest place for her. You're here because you chose to save a child instead of walking away. Don't pretend you didn't know this would end badly. Finn wanted to argue, but she was right. He'd known. From the moment he'd found Kessa in that wreckage, he'd known it would end in blood and fire. He just hoped the blood wouldn't be theirs. Kessa tugged on Amanda's sleeve, made a series of gestures. Amanda listened, nodded, then turned back to Finn. She says you fought well, that you're resourceful but reckless, that you care more about doing what's right than staying alive. Amanda's expression shifted into something that might have been respect. She's also noticed the same thing I have, that cruiser approaching from high orbit isn't broadcasting a Tarok or Volreen signature. Finn pulled up the feed. She was right. The ship was sleek and predatory, but its configuration was wrong, not military standard for either species. Something else. The comm crackled. A voice came through, female, speaking standard with an accent Finn couldn't place. Vestra 7, this is the independent vessel Shadow's Edge. Dr. Chris, you have something that belongs to me. Amanda's face went pale. She stabbed at the comm controls. Riska, you're supposed to be dead. Laughter echoed through the speakers, low and dangerous. My sister was killed for loving the wrong person. Her daughter was supposed to die with her. But I see the human found her first. A pause. I'm coming down, Amanda. And if you've hurt her, I'll burn your facility to ash before those fleets arrive. The connection cut off. Finn looked at Amanda, at Kessa, at the screens showing 30 warships converging on their position. Riska, he said, that's Kessa's aunt, Amanda finished, and the most dangerous Volreen warrior alive. She moved to a weapons locker and started pulling out rifles. She was ordered to execute her own niece. She refused, went rogue, and has been hunting the people responsible ever since. Finn accepted the rifle she tossed him. So is she here to help or kill us? That depends entirely on whether she believes we're protecting Kessa or using her. Amanda checked the charge on her weapon, and given what I've just told you, I'm not sure I can blame her either way. Kessa made a sound, not quite a word, but loaded with meaning. She was staring at the screen showing the approaching cruiser, and her entire body had gone tense. Her ears were forward. Her tail was straight. Every line of her posture screamed anticipation. The facility's external sensors shrieked. The Shadow's Edge had just entered the atmosphere at combat velocity, shedding heat like a meteor. It wasn't heading for a landing pad. It was heading straight for their section of the facility. Breach in 30 seconds, Amanda said. She looked at Finn. I hope you're as good at improvising as Kessa says, because we're about to meet the only person in the galaxy who terrifies both sides equally. Finn chambered around and pulled Kessa behind cover. The child wasn't frightened. If anything, she looked eager. The wall exploded inward in a shower of debris and superheated metal. Through the smoke, a figure emerged, rust-colored fur, amber eyes that reflected the emergency lighting. Combat armor scorched from atmospheric entry. 2 curved blades in her hands that looked like they'd been designed for one purpose, opening arteries. Riska stepped through the breach, and her gaze locked onto Kessa. For one heartbeat, the universe held its breath. Then Kessa broke from cover and ran. Finn's finger tightened on the trigger, but Kessa was already moving. She crossed the distance to Riska in seconds, small body colliding with the warrior's legs. Riska dropped to one knee, blades clattering as she wrapped her arms around the child. The sound that came from Riska's throat wasn't human. It was pure grief and relief tangled together, a keening that made Finn's chest ache. Kessa buried her face in her aunt's neck, and for the first time since Finn had found her, she cried. Amanda lowered her rifle. Well, that's not the reunion I expected. Riska's head snapped up, amber eyes locking onto Amanda with predatory focus. But you put a quantum beacon on a civilian transport. You brought her here knowing every killer in the sector would follow. I brought her to the only place with enough firepower to protect her, Amanda said. And I brought her to family. Riska stood, lifting Kessa with her. The child wrapped around her aunt's torso, clinging tight. Riska's attention shifted to Finn. You're the human, she said, the salvage operator who pulled her from the wreckage. Finn Aldrich, he said, keeping his rifle pointed down. I didn't know what she was. Didn't know any of this. But you protected her anyway. Riska's ears tilted forward, even after they marked you for death. Finn shrugged. She needed help. I was there. Something shifted in Riska's expression. Not quite a smile. Humans, you make the most illogical decisions and then act surprised when they work. She looked at Amanda. How long until the broadcast? 90 minutes, Amanda said. Assuming the facility survives, we've got 30 warships converging, and my defensive systems weren't designed to hold off sustained assault. Then we modify the plan. Riska set Kessa down gently. The broadcast goes out from my ship, not from here. We evacuate the facility and make them chase us. Amanda shook her head. Your ship doesn't have the range. My ship has modifications you've never seen, Riska interrupted. I can broadcast to half the sector. Finn watched the two women face off, saw the calculation happening behind both sets of eyes. There's another option, Finn said. Both women turned to look at him. We split them up. Some of us draw the attack here. The rest get to Riska's ship and make the broadcast from orbit. They can't stop both. That's a suicide mission for whoever stays, Amanda pointed out. Finn met her gaze. But someone was always going to die here. Might as well make it count. Riska studied him. Her tail swept slowly behind her. You would stay and fight, for refugees you don't know. For Kessa, Finn corrected. Kessa made a sound, sharp and negative. She grabbed Finn's hand, claws pricking his skin. When he looked down, she was shaking her head violently. She says no, Riska translated. She says you don't get to die for her. She's already lost too many people. Finn knelt to Kessa's eye level. Hey, I'm not planning on dying. I'm planning on being really annoying until your aunt gets that broadcast out. Big difference. Kessa's eyes narrowed. She didn't believe him. The facility shuddered. Finn felt it through the floor. Something large had just entered orbit and was preparing to fire. Amanda's screens lit up with warnings. Tarok heavy cruisers, weapons charging. Decision time, Amanda said. She was already moving, pulling data chips from terminals. Riska, can you get the refugees to your ship? If someone clears a path and keeps the hunters busy. Riska's hand dropped to her blades. How many people are we evacuating? 43, Amanda said. Adults and children. Most can move fast, but we've got wounded. Finn did the math. 43 people through hostile territory to reach Riska's ship. The Tarok would be dropping assault teams any minute. The Vulrine wouldn't be far behind. We need a distraction, he said. Something that makes them focus on the wrong target. Riska's grin was all teeth. I like the way you think, human. What did you have in mind? The Nomad, Finn said. She's got just enough engine left for one more jump. We program her to broadcast Kessa's biosignature, send her toward the outer system on autopilot, and let every ship chase empty space while we move on foot. Amanda was nodding. That could work. They'll expect you to run. There's a problem, Riska said. She'd moved to the breach, looking out at the sky. They're not just coming to kill us. They're coming to eliminate evidence. They'll bombard the facility from orbit once they're sure we're inside. Then we give them a reason to hesitate, Amanda said. She pulled up a schematic. The broadcast equipment is hardened against orbital strikes. They'll need to send troops inside to destroy it manually. We make them think the broadcast is still going out from here. Finn saw where this was going. You want to stay behind. Make them think you're still trying to transmit. I'm an old woman with more enemies than friends and a terminal diagnosis I've been ignoring for 6 months, Amanda said matter-of-factly. I was dead the moment I decided to do this. But I can buy you 90 minutes. Get everyone to Riska's ship and make my death mean something. Kessa made a distressed sound. She looked between Amanda and Finn, clearly understanding. Riska crouched beside her niece, speaking softly in Vulrine. Kessa responded, gestures sharp with anger. Riska kept her voice steady, kept explaining. Finally, Kessa's ears drooped, and she nodded once. What did you tell her? Finn asked. That some fights require sacrifice, Riska said. That her parents understood this. That Amanda understands this. And that the best way to honor that sacrifice is to survive and tell the truth. She looked at Finn. Your ship, how long to program the autopilot? 10 minutes if we move fast. Then move. Riska stood, picking up her blades. I'll start gathering the refugees. Amanda coordinates the defense. Finn, you get that ship ready, then you're with me on evacuation. Kessa stays by my side. The facility shuddered again, harder. The Turok were firing warning shots. Through the breach, Finn could see smaller craft descending. Dropships, assault shuttles, hunter pods. The ground assault was beginning. One more thing, Amanda said. She pulled a small device from her pocket and handed it to Riska. Kessa's parents gave this to me before they died. They wanted her to have it when she was old enough to understand. Riska took the device carefully. Data storage, personal files, memories. A final message from parents to their daughter. Get her to safety, Amanda said. Tell her story. Make sure everyone knows her parents weren't traitors. They were heroes. Riska's hand closed around the device. I will, I swear it. They moved then, each to their assigned task. Finn ran with Kessa toward the landing pads, the child's small hand gripping his with surprising strength. Behind them, the first explosion rocked the facility as Turok assault teams breached the outer walls. The Nomad waited on Pad 7, scarred but still functional. Finn sealed Kessa inside, fired up the systems, and began the fastest autopilot programming of his life. She watched him work, eyes tracking every movement. When he activated the biosignature broadcast, a looped signal that would make every scanner think Kessa was aboard, she made a sound that might have been approval. Smart kid, Finn muttered. He set the course, a hard burn toward the outer system, maximum speed. Every hunter out there would see it. Every warship would give chase. And by the time they realized the Nomad was empty, Riska's ship would be broadcasting truth to half the sector. Finn activated the launch sequence and grabbed Kessa. They were out of the ship and running before the engines had fully ignited. Behind them, the Nomad lifted off, her old engines screaming as she climbed toward orbit, and the fate Finn had chosen for her. He'd lost his ship, lost his livelihood, lost any chance of going back to the simple life. But when he looked down at Kessa running beside him, trusting him to keep her safe, Finn couldn't bring himself to regret a single choice. Riska waited at the evacuation point with 43 refugees huddled behind her. Humans, Volreen, Tarok, species Finn didn't recognize, all of them marked for death by a treaty built on lies. Children clung to adults. Wounded leaned on the healthy. They looked terrified. The Nomad's away, Finn said. Every scanner in orbit just lit up, chasing her. Riska nodded. Then we move. Fast and quiet. My ship is 3 kilometers north. We've got maybe 20 minutes before they realize the deception. An explosion bloomed on the southern perimeter. Amanda's defensive systems engaging the assault teams, buying them time with her life. Let's not waste it, Finn said. They moved into the night, 45 souls running toward salvation while the facility burned behind them and the galaxy's lies began to crumble. The shadow's edge rose from the northern ridge like a predator emerging from shadow. Sleek and scarred, bristling with weapons that had no business on a civilian vessel. Riska's ship was built for war, and Finn had never been so happy to see something so dangerous. The refugees streamed up the boarding ramp, adults carrying children, wounded helping wounded, everyone moving with the efficiency of people who understood that hesitation meant death. Kessa stayed pressed against Finn's side, her small hand gripping his jacket. Get them strapped in, Riska ordered, already moving toward the cockpit. We launch in 3 minutes. Finn helped an elderly Turok woman into a crash seat, felt her scaled hands squeeze his in wordless thanks. Around him, families found spaces, secured restraints, held each other. 43 lives that shouldn't exist according to a treaty built on manufactured hate. The ship's engines cycled up with a roar that rattled Finn's teeth. Through the open ramp, he could see lights in the distance. Dropships converging on the facility, too late to stop the evacuation, but early enough to turn Amanda's last stand into a slaughter. Finn! Riska's voice crackled over the intercom. I need you in the cockpit, now. He looked down at Kessa. She nodded once and moved to sit with younger children, her presence already calming them. Finn squeezed her shoulder, then ran. The cockpit was all business. Tactical displays, weapon systems, enough computing power to run a small fleet. Riska's hands danced across controls. She didn't look up when Finn entered. Sit, she said, gesturing to the co-pilot's seat. and try not to touch anything." Finn dropped into the seat and immediately understood why she'd called him. The main display showed their flight path, a vertical burn straight up through atmosphere, while 30 warships waited in orbit above. Suicide odds. "Tell me you've got a trick," Finn said. Riska's grin was feral. "I've got several. Hold on." The Shadow's Edge launched. Not the careful ascent of a civilian transport, but a military-grade combat burn that slammed Finn back into his seat. The moon's surface fell away beneath them. Above, the black of space waited. And between them and freedom, 30 warships prepared to fire. "Weapons lock," Riska said calmly. "Multiple targeting solutions. They figured out the Nomad was empty." "How long until we're in broadcast range?" 2 minutes, if we survive that long." Riska's hands flew across controls, redistributing power to forward shields. "This is going to hurt." The first wave of fire hit like the fist of an angry god. The Shadow's Edge shuddered, alarms screaming as energy weapons hammered their shields. Riska rolled the ship, presenting different shield faces to absorb damage, burning hard toward orbital plane, where her broadcast equipment could reach across the sector. "Shields at 60%, Finn reported. 50, they're concentrating fire." The ship lurched sideways, engines straining. Riska had thrown them into a corkscrew that put a Tarok cruiser between them and the Vulrine destroyers. The cruiser's shields flared as it took friendly fire. Confusion rippled through enemy formations. 30 seconds to broadcast range, Riska said. "They're launching fighters," Finn warned. "Small craft poured from larger ships. Fast, agile, deadly." Riska activated her own weapons. Turrets deployed from hidden housings, tracking systems locking onto incoming fighters. The Shadow's Edge was a warship disguised as a courier. "Broadcasting in 10 seconds, she said. Her voice had gone cold. Professional. "Once we start transmitting, every ship will know exactly where we are. They'll throw everything at us." "Can we survive it?" "No." Riska's eyes met his. "But we don't need to survive. We just need to broadcast long enough for the message to propagate through relay networks. 60 seconds of transmission and half the sector will have the evidence." Finn thought about Kessa below, surrounded by refugees who'd already lost everything. Thought about Amanda burning in her facility. Thought about parents who died trying to end a war both sides were determined to keep alive. 60 seconds, he said. Let's make them count. The ship's broadcast equipment activated. Finn felt it through the deck. A deep thrumming as massive transmitters pumped evidence into the void. Images of bridge-born children, recordings of meetings where officials coordinated their profitable Cold War, financial records showing weapons sales. The truth, naked and undeniable, flooding across communication networks. And the enemy response was immediate and overwhelming. Every warship opened fire simultaneously. Energy weapons and kinetic projectiles converged on the Shadow's Edge with murderous intent. Riska threw the ship into evasive maneuvers, but there were too many threats, too much firepower concentrated on one target. "Shields failing," Finn reported. Warning lights painted the cockpit red. "Hull breaches on decks 2 and 3. 45 seconds, Riska interrupted. Her hands never stopped moving. We can last 45 seconds. She was wrong. The ship groaned as another salvo hammered their shields. Explosions rocked the cargo bay. Finn heard screams over the intercom, cut short as bulkheads sealed. "Reroute life support to shields," Riska ordered. "That'll kill everyone in the cargo bay," Finn protested. "They're already dead." Her voice was flat. "But the broadcast has to complete, 30 seconds. Finn's hand hovered over the controls. One button press. Take the air from 43 people to buy 30 more seconds. Take the air from Kessa. He couldn't do it. "Finn," Riska's voice was gentle now. "She would want this. She understands sacrifice." 20 seconds. Finn closed his eyes and made the choice that would haunt him. His finger moved toward the control. A new voice cut through the chaos, calm, professional, broadcasting on open channels. "All vessels. This is the neutral carrier Bright Passage. We are receiving a priority emergency transmission from the Shadow's Edge. Under Sector Treaty 7, Article 9, all hostile action must cease during humanitarian broadcasts. Any vessel that continues firing will be considered in violation of neutral space protocols." Finn's eyes snapped open. His display showed a massive ship dropping out of FTL at the system's edge. A neutral carrier, one of the massive vessels that moved refugees across the sector, protected by treaties both sides had signed. Riska's laugh was half-sob, Amanda's backup plan. The firing stopped, not because the warships had grown consciences, but because violating neutral space protocols meant economic sanctions, trade embargoes, diplomatic isolation, the kind of consequences that threatened profit margins. And in that sudden silence, the broadcast continued. 15 seconds. 10, 5. The transmission completed. Finn watched confirmation codes flood his display as relay stations across the sector picked up the signal and started propagating it. No recall, no suppression. The truth spreading like wildfire through civilized space. "We did it," Finn said. "We actually did it." Riska's hands were shaking on the controls, combat adrenaline draining away, leaving only exhaustion and grief. "Take us to the cargo bay," she said quietly. "I need to see Kessa." They found the refugees shaken, but alive. Hull breaches had been contained before causing casualties. Kessa sat with younger children, telling them something in the mixed language she'd been developing, making them laugh despite everything. When she saw Finn and Riska, she jumped up and ran to them. Riska caught her, held her close, and for the first time since Finn had met either of them, the warrior let herself cry. The Bright Passage's captain offered them sanctuary. Medical aid for the wounded, quarters for the refugees, protection while the galaxy processed what they'd learned. Around them, news networks were exploding with the revelation, officials scrambling to distance themselves from the conspiracy, military leaders resigning, defense contractors' stock prices plummeting. The war that had never really ended was finally dying, killed by truth rather than weapons. 2 months later, Finn stood on the observation deck of a new facility. Not a sanctuary station hidden in shadows, but an official embassy built in neutral space. Bridge-born children played in the garden below, no longer hiding, no longer hunted. Just children. Kessa sat with her tutors, studying both Vulrine and Tarok history, learning about her parents' work, preparing to continue their legacy. Riska approached, moving with that predatory grace that would never leave her. She'd stayed, become head of security for the new embassy, protecting the children who represented everything her sister had died for. "She asks about you constantly," Riska said. "When you're leaving, when you're coming back, whether you're staying." Finn had been wrestling with that question since the day they'd landed. He wasn't a soldier anymore, wasn't a salvage operator, wasn't sure what he was beyond a man who'd stumbled into history and somehow survived. "I don't know," he admitted. "I don't belong here." "You saved her life," Riska said. "You risked everything for a child you didn't know. You helped expose a conspiracy that had corrupted 2 civilizations." She looked at him with those amber eyes. "You belong here as much as anyone." Below, Kessa looked up, saw Finn watching. Her face split into a grin, and she waved enthusiastically. Finn waved back, feeling something in his chest crack open. He'd spent 5 years running from his past. From the guilt of not being there when his family needed him, from the weight of choices made and roads not taken. Maybe it was time to stop running. "I'll stay," he said, "for as long as she needs me." Riska's hand found his shoulder, squeezed once, understanding passing between them without words. In the garden below, Kessa returned to her studies. The child who'd been marked for death, who'd survived a conspiracy, who'd helped bring down a profitable war through sheer existence. She was safe now, surrounded by family, by friends, by a galaxy that was finally learning to see bridge-born children not as abominations but as hope. And Finn Aldrich, salvage operator turned unlikely hero, had finally found something worth staying for.